keep you alive. It held knowledge about plants, which ones would save your life and which would kill you. It contained ceremonies and rituals believed to honor God or gods and goddesses. It was the tangible collection of a lifetime of learning. A woman would record what she'd been taught as a child and add to it throughout her lifetime. The fairer sex would learn from each other and cautiously trade remedies. To be imprinted in another woman's grimoire was an act of trust from both parties. Once my daughter George was born, I started collecting scraps of information, quotes, book excerpts, and other pieces of knowledge in a leather-bound journal with creamy, thick pages and irregular edges. A grimoire of ideas and habits I wanted her to have. The idea of inheritance was important to me. As I looked into her little rosebud face, I struggled to find what I could give her and my son Gus that would outlast me. The thing I wanted to leave my children was joy, secrets, curiosity, mischief. I wanted them to have a sense of self that would be a strong canvas on which they could add their own splashes of color and narrative. The moment I started working on it, a global catastrophe took over, and suddenly we were all collectively examining our own mortality. Life sure has a way of kicking you square in the ass, doesn't it? Big questions loomed for all of us. Who are we in the absence of office culture and without packed calendars of parties or dates or kids' soccer games? What does this mortal coil hold if it's not dressed up in fashion or uniforms? Well, all that did was make me even more motivated to commit pen to paper and record these musings. And now it wasn't just for my children, but as a reminder for myself. There were dark days in there, friends. I don't know anyone who emerged from lockdown unscathed. We either grew too hard or too soft or too embittered or painfully empathetic. I struggled with how to ground myself, to remember the healthy practices or creative habits that brought me joy. I didn't want my kids, who were home more than ever at that point, to look back on the lost years and remember their mom as a shell of a woman. I also didn't want them thinking I was a faker. So that tender balance between admitting that life is hard and seeking out the good in it became the tightrope I walked on a daily basis. Then we started emerging from our pandemic cocoons and venturing out. Things were looking up, right? My husband Jeffrey and I took our kids on a vacation to Sagamore Beach in Massachusetts. The tiny house we rented was a time capsule of simpler times. The bedroom was just large enough to fit a double bed with room around it to shimmy sideways. The wood-paneled walls displayed pictures of the owner's grandma in her rocking chair. The actual rocking chair sat right below. The guest book was a log preserving a decade of visits from close family members, recounting lunches with uncles and cousins' birthdays and bioluminescence in the water. It seemed the owners only opened the house up to strangers when the world shut down and people were desperate for coastal hideaways. Ours was one of the very few non-family entries recorded, making us feel special, like long-lost distant cousins. Our last night there, I saw 2 shooting stars. I'd never seen a shooting star before. There were always meteor showers in Wilmington, North Carolina when I lived there, but I'll level with you. I always lied about being able to see them. I figured I just had bad eyes, or I wasn't patient enough to stare up at the sky to catch them. But in truth, all those previous stars were not for me. They were meant for other people to see. So I'd fib. Oh, wow, I'd muse along with everyone else. That was wild. But on that one night in early August 2021, I saw 2 of them. And it was indeed wild. The next day on our drive home, I found out my Christmas movie mom, Marky Post, had left us. 9 days later, one of my most beloved friends, Willie Garson, told us he was stopping treatment for cancer. I sat on planes, I sat at bedsides, I sat at memorials. I sat posted up at home on my phone texting with the bereaved. I sat alone at my computer, watching videos of these powerfully alive humans. Willie would pass a few short weeks later. As I sit here working on this grimoire,